Shalom. I want to start by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahushai, Ba'asham Kakadash, double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone for teaching us scriptures among other things, and salutations to all the Akyam across the earth who are doing this work in sincerity and truth. And Shalom to the sincere brothers and sisters who are at home watching the videos and do the best to please Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahushai. So this is a collage that I made from couple of pictures. Even she, that cousin of mine, sent it to me. My niece. She even had some videos, about food, and I told her like I don't eat these things. And this, my niece from Curacao, and I was there for a couple of days. And how do you say that? So this is a very big thing on the islands, in the Caribbean, Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, you name it, they like to eat the so-called seafood, abominable things. Even like Curacao, they love to eat the pork tail, even on how do you say that, on the pigtail. And Aruba, they like to eat the ears and the feet, which are half rotten, for example. On Curacao with Christmas, they like to make, which is also going off, they like to make like the shoulder, the whole shoulder, with the leg on it of the pork, put it in the oven with honey and all that shit on it, like a big ham, things like that. So, and a lot of our people dealing with overweight, sicknesses, and all these things, cholesterol, you name it, all these things. But it's because of the food, because the Heavenly Father gave us, the children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and the so-called Indianos, the laws, the most just laws, and that also includes the dietary laws, and it's not for no reason. It's to keep us, keep us in a sound body, in a good, healthy body. But a lot of times you find that people find it hard to quit with such a things. Like uncle of mine that died almost 2 years ago. He was also had also problem with his health, and the majority of it also came off his food, also by his job. Because he was like a bus driver. Like a small bus driver on the Curacao. It's very normal. Like people have a van, with the multiple seats in. Like yeah, they could maybe sit like, there's like 2 or 3 rows. Let's say they can from 12 till 18 people or something, and they drive around the island, bring people from destination to destination for a couple of guilders. So he also by his job, he used to be a lot in the, yeah, driving around, so sitting down and eating a lot of greasy stuff also, and even if you eat like clean food, but if you eat with a lot of oil, if everything fried, greasy things with all this gravy and all these sauces on it, that's also not good. Everything needs to be in balance. There's nothing wrong with sometimes having stuff with gravy or whatever, but you shouldn't be all about the fatness. But he also loved a lot of abominable things. So my auntie was telling me at a certain point she stopped with eating pork. Yeah, basically she already stopped for years, and she was trying her husband. But my auntie is like the sister of my mother, and her husband. He was a dope character. I really yeah, you could say I really loved him. He's very lovable. He always have been very dope towards me. And actually never. Like when you get in the truth, you will find a lot of family members that actually don't like it for, if you cut them with scriptures. Because if you look at Curacao, for example, the majority, yeah, basically everybody is there. The majority of people are stuck on Christianity. The biggest religion that you got going on in Curacao is Catholicism, whatever how you pronounce that word. The majority of the people are Catholics. So that's what it is. So they follow that nonsense, and it's funny because they don't read the Bible, and if you, and like I said, if you come in this truth, a lot of people, you see them doing shit and you start explaining them according to the Bible, what they should do or shouldn't do. The majority of them might get even, they started to hate you. But you're gonna find out who respect you, who's gonna respect you for what you are, even if they don't listen. For example, I got a cousin, who really doesn't, he's not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, but he respect what I do. He respected us so much that even when he had his wedding, because we be on the highways and byways like every Saturday, Yara Taza, we keep continue this until the end. And sometimes we might switch it due circumstances, but majority of the time is on a Saturday, and he knew that, and he had his wedding on a Friday, so that I was able to be at his wedding. So that's a very beautiful thing, to do. If you still have respect. So like I said, not everybody's gonna believe it, or might not even agree with you. But as long as they respect you, that's already a thing. Because when you are in the truth, you're gonna find out who your enemies are, and a lot of times they are closer than you think. So my auntie, and that's also, she's also very a loving person. She gave me a Bible in the Papiamento language, which is with the book of Sirach and the Maccabees, and Baruch was also in there. Not all the books of the Apocrypha are in there, but a lot of them are in there, in the Papiamento language, which is a very a beautiful gift. And how do you say that? And she actually did that from the yeah, when she understand that I was in the truth of what I was doing. Explain her a little bit. She didn't fully understand it in the beginning, but now she knows. She knows that I'll be on the highways and byways and all that. But yeah, then she like years, a couple of years ago, I don't remember exactly when she did it, but she basically, when my sister went to Curacao, my little sister, and she came back, she gave her that Bible for me, which was very beautiful because I wasn't even aware that she knew about the books from the Apocrypha. And then at certain point, she started telling me about how she loved to read the book of Sirach and Baruch, that those were like her favorite books, and that was very, very beautiful. So last time that I was with her, I visited her twice, last time that I went to Curacao. And she was telling me that, how she also at a certain point stopped stopped to making this abominable food for him also, because she also knew that yeah, it was not also that we, by law we ain't supposed to eat it, but also knew, was aware that it's also bad for our health, and you got this food, and the islands on Curacao, they call it criollo, which means like yeah, culture food, basically something like that, like food that we always used to eat, but it's a lot of things. These things go back to slavery. For example, if you watch the original series of Roots, from the story of Kunta Kinte, then you see that when he is, I said it, brought to America as a slave, and the first time that he gets food, then the slave, the fiddler, who brought him the food, explained to him that the meat that was in the with the food, he had something like a porridge or something, and they explained him there was a pig snout in it, and he didn't want to eat it. But if you look at these foods, a lot of these foods goes back to the things that we had in the slavery. For, like I said, Curacao, they have certain dishes that they make with the pig still. So that shows you that those were the things that they were given the slaves, as concerning as meat. The things that the slave owners themselves refused to eat. So like the ears, and like I said, the pig feet. The pig feet, the ears, and the tail. So there's a certain dish, and there's like with the fungi, it's like a corn from the wheat from made from corn, the flour made from corn, and then you store it, and you let it boil, and then it gets very I said it. At first it looks like a porridge, but the longer you boil it, the stiffer it gets, and then you can, yeah, it's kind of, like the grease mill. I don't know how you call it in English. A grease mill pudding. Yeah, it's kind of like a grease mill pudding. Not concerning this taste, but let me check real quick. So the English word is semolina. It turns like the same thickness like semolina, but then made from corn flour, you know. And they made it like with the okra in it, the green vegetable which turns slimy, and then they do the pig's tail in it. I remember like when I was younger, my grandmother made it for me, and I refused to eat it. I told her like I also didn't like the okra, which is a very don't get me wrong, the okra is a very healthy vegetable. It's very good for you. Got a lot of benefits, but I don't like it myself because it's also green, and it's also slimy, like slime, and it's also salt. The taste thereof is also salty. So to me, it was like mucus. I didn't want to eat it. And then with the pig still in it, and I told my grandma I ain't going to eat that. And I didn't like pig, ever since I was a kid. I didn't want to eat it. My mother was always lying to me, preparing pig all kinds of ways, and lying to me that is how I said that is beef made on such a way and all that. But I always tasted it like I knew that was pig, and I didn't want to eat it. But she said like she made it for him like, and then she did instead of the pig's tail, she had chicken in it. And she said like he was looking very angry at her. I had to laugh because I already picture him. He was a very peculiar character. And I already, when she was telling me, I picture myself his face, how he was looking to her, so he and she said like she gave him like she gave her like an evil eye, and he finished his plate, and he told her like she never she was he told her like never do this again. And it really had me cracking up because I picture how he how he would have said it and all that. He was a very laughing man, very funny also, and peculiar. But yeah, and and when he was dealing with his sickness, and like 2 years ago that I also went to Curacao. I spent some time with him. He had the TIA, so he then you got a lot of memory loss and all that, and all of a sudden he died. But he was very, I was very glad to see him, because I didn't saw him also for years. Before that, like 25 years, I didn't go to the island, so I didn't saw him. Also for 25 years, I didn't saw him. So it was very good, that the Most High allowed me to go, and that I was able to see him still alive, and he remembered me, and he was very, I went with my oldest son, and so he was very glad to see me. But even then, when he was struggling with his health, he was always begging for the dainty stuff. But yeah, so like I said, I'm kind of drifting. So the majority of people, they are calling themselves Christians, and they say that they believe in Yahweh Basham Yahushai. Yeah, no, they're not saying Yahweh Basham Yahushai, but they say that they believe in God and in Jesus and all that. But meanwhile, they also believe that they are able to eat everything. But meanwhile, the law, statutes, and commandments, they still count. The Bible is very clear about it. So let me jump first to the book of John, chapter 2 and verse 3. And hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandments. You see that? Verse 4. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandment is a liar, and the truth is not in him. And that's the majority of our people, especially these Christians. Especially these Christians, so-called, like the elder apostle Tahar said, those are antichrist. That's what they are, because they're going against the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Basham Yahushai. So If you are against something, you're anti, you know? So that's what it is. So let me see. Um, the book of First John, chapter 2, and verse 5. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of Yahweh perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. He that saith he abide in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. You know, so yeah, even as Yahweh Shai walked, you know, be ye perfect as my Father is, you know. And like I said, you know, the law, statutes, and commandments were given unto the children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and the so-called Indianos. Let the Chinese people eat their dogs and their whales and all these things, you know. Let them do whatsoever. It's not for them. The law, statutes, and commandments are for the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and the so-called Indianos, and those that go back to those people by the house of their father. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 147 and verse 19. He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He had not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. So that already shows you that it's only for the children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and the so-called Indianos, you know. And the law, statutes, and commandments, you know, are very clear, you know. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4 and verse 8. And what nation is there so great that hath statutes and judgments so righteous? So all this law which I set before you this day. And like Yahweh Shai said, you know, because that's also a thing that these Christians wanna say, you know, they don't read the Bible, they just go after what the pastors say, you know, Pastor Potchop talking all that shit, and after when the church service is done, you know, people be eating a sandwich with ham and cheese and all that shit, you know, having a cocktail, a shrimp cocktail and whatever, you know, all these things. And like you see on this picture, you know, and this people on Curacao, they also lead, you know, you got this some kind of snail that lives in the sea, cargo, you know, they love that also, you know, they put it in all kinds of food, they eat it with fries and all that shit, you know, and they really love their shrimp, you know, you see it there, you know, almost everything is with shrimp there on the picture, you know, shrimp, lobster, the crab, you know, crab, the name already said it, you know, says it, you know, they love to eat that. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 17. Think not that I come to destroy the law. So these are the words of Yahweh Shai, the words of the word, or the words of the one that the world, the majority of the people in ignorance calls Jesus. Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one title shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. And the jot is like the smallest character from the Hebrew, you know. So that already shows you that everything still counts. The only thing is that Yahweh Shai went on the cross, that we're not gonna be put to death by not keeping the law, you know. So we are on the grace, but because that we are on the grace is no license to sin. You know, you try your best to keep the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your ability, and of course you cannot keep everything because the flesh is weak and we are in this wicked world. But when we're gonna receive, you know, and our body is, you know, yeah, through our body we keep on going off. But when Yahushua is gonna come back, then we're gonna be perfect, you know. But like I said, there's not an excuse like, oh, the flesh is weak, so you willingly going off. No, you try your best, you know. There are 613 law, statutes, and commandments, and of course you cannot. It's impossible for us to keep them, you know. For example, just to name one thing, if you got a job, you know, like the scripture said, on the Sabbath, you ain't supposed to do any work. But if you get a job, you cannot take every Sabbath day off. Because let's say in 1 month, the Sabbath day would be on a Wednesday. The next month, it might be on a Thursday or on a Friday, you know. And you cannot be like, okay, every week, you know, see, this month that we are in right now, boss, Mr. Boss, man, listen up. You know, this month that we are right now, you know, every Wednesday of this week, I need to have the day off because it's the Sabbath. You know, you're gonna find yourself with a long ass Sabbath, meaning you're gonna find yourself without a job. You know, so like I said, we are on the grace. So You cannot keep the law, statutes, and commandments. Nevertheless, we teach each other about the law, statutes, and commandments because that's the right thing to do. But you got to be aware that you're not going to be able to keep all the law, statutes, and commandments, And if you try to do it, you're going to destroy yourself, man. That's also why the scripture said, don't be over righteous. Everything is a balance, you know. A false balance is an abomination to Yahweh Basham Yahushai, So back to the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 18. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one title shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And that's what we're aiming for. We want to be called great in the kingdom of heaven. We don't give a shit about what people think in this world that we're living in today, We don't mind, if you look at Nate Satan, he want to be called great, coming in. When Yahushai came on an ass, on a donkey, you got this Nate Satan coming in on a horse, That's crazy, man. A haughty spirit. But yeah, let me jump into some things concerning what we are about to eat and not to eat. So, for example, there's multiple, you got the book of Leviticus chapter 11 that talks about it, let you see. Just let me read a little bit of it, because there's a lot. I don't want to make this video too long, but you can read it for yourself. This is the book of Leviticus chapter 11 and 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, These are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are upon the earth. Whatsoever parteth the hoof, and is cloven-footed, and cheweth the cud among the beasts, that shall ye eat. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat of them that chew the cud, or them that divided the hoof, as the camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof. So the camel is unclean, he is unclean unto you. And the coney, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean to you. And the hare, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean to you. And the swine, though he divided the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you. And our people love this pork, Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you. And concerning verse 8, of the flesh shall ye not eat, and the carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you. For example, if you you have a job in a slaughterhouse, for example, like my father, until his pension, he worked in a slaughterhouse for pigs. I also worked there for a while when I was younger, for years. And the last part that I worked in a slaughterhouse, I worked in a slaughterhouse for cows, But, let's say, we are on the grace, like I said, you ain't supposed that dead carcasses, but sometimes it's impossible. If you have to work, for example, you have to work in the supermarket, and you have to fill those shells, or you have to fill the cooler, with the ham, you're still touching basically the carcasses, because this the meat thereof, you're still touching it, So by the scriptures you're unclean, but you're on the grace, you still have, you have to work for your daily bread. The scripture said, if you don't work, you don't eat, and that's what it is. If you have a job, and Yahweh Lord willing, you might find another job. But if you find yourself currently working there, of course, it's better if you have another job. You can try to look for another job, but don't quit the job and be like jobless, moneyless, because that's also bullshit, And this is an example of don't be overly righteous, because you're going to destroy yourself if you don't have a job. And especially if you quit, like here in Holland, if you work for a job for a certain time and people fire you, then the government give you some benefits, that you receive for amount of time, like 70% of your last wager that you earned from your last job. But if you quit the job by yourself, you'll receive nothing, so you'll be with no money in your pocket, Jumping to verse 9. These shall you eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever hath fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers, them shall you eat. So that already showing you that you ain't supposed to eat like the eel, like the shrimp, the lobster, the snails, the clams, the oyster, all these things you ain't supposed to eat. And for example, concerning the fowls, the birds, the chicken is clean to eat, but like the ostrich, you ain't supposed to eat the ostrich, how you call it, the swan, the owl, the hawk, the hawk, the little owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the swan, the pelican, the eagle, the eagle, the stork, the heron. Those are all hunting birds. You ain't supposed to eat the bat. You ain't supposed to eat that. And also concerning the insect, because that's also thing that they be pushing lately. Like it's better to eat insects and all that. But there are only a few insects that you are allowed to eat, and in the book of Deuteronomy it shows you that let me see, uh let me see is it in Deuteronomy or is it in the oh no, it's in Leviticus himself. Let me see. uh so the birds. Yeah, these ye may eat of every flying creeping thing. So concerning the insects that you are allowed to eat. Yet these may ye eat of every flying creeping thing. So Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 21. Yet these may ye eat of every flying creeping thing that goeth upon all four, which have legs above their feet, to leap withal upon the earth. Even these of them ye may eat, the locust after his kind, and the bald locust after his kind, and the beetle after his kind, and the grasshopper after his kind. So, for example, like a couple of years ago, I did a video about these Hamites. I don't remember exactly which country that was. But they had like a period when there were a lot of flies, and they were catching the flies and making cakes of that. Eating the flies. That also shows you that these Hamites, they might have the same skin colors as us, but they are not children of Israel. That it shows you different. They eating these things. So, and the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 14, also speaks about the same things as in Leviticus chapter 11, about what we can eat and what we cannot eat. And like I said, things like this, showing our people that they are showing us that these people, these Christians, and especially if I look at the islands, but these Christians in general, that they don't read the Bible. They don't read the Bible. It's very clear. This is the book of John, chapter 14 and verse 15. If you love me, keep my commandments. See, done. You see that? Very short, but it's very clear. And one of the commandments is also the dietary law. So if you're claiming to love Yahweh Basham Yashai, oh, I love Jesus, I love God, this and that, blah blah blah, and meanwhile you think you can eat everything you want, and like I said, the laws are most just. It's for our own good. These laws is about life and death. So yeah, man, I'm gonna leave it like that. And like I said, our people are really stuck on stupidness, and you try to explain it, and they be amazed. And a lot of times you're gonna find out that they're gonna find it hard to quit these things. Like on Curacao, you have a lot of these food trucks going on, and sometimes you're standing there by and you eat something, and you see how they love to put the shrimp or the snail from the sea on how they love to eat it with everything. So yeah, man, I'm gonna leave it like that. So with that, I want to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Rukakadash, a double honors to the apostles and the elders bishops of great millstone for teaching of scriptures, among other things, and salutations to all the Akyam across the world to doing this work in sincerity and truth, and shalom to the sincere brothers and sisters who are at home watching the videos and do the best to please Yahweh Basham Yahushai. So yeah, man, shalom.